Alright, so back to my Friday the 13th reviews, and I've reviewed the first two. Now I'm really excited, honestly, to talk about the third film, Friday the 13th Part 3, in 3D, which to me was a fun gimmick that, even though it's the 3D, 80s 3D, or where it's just with the glasses, it's like one side is blue, one side is red. It's not like what a lot of people now consider 3D to be. This was the original kind of 3D that they used to have, which to me, I think watching it in 3D, and I think it has a lot of charm to it, despite being a different type of 3D than what we have now. And I think that really, it just has this weird authentic charm to it in terms of this movie itself. Out of all the other films, this is the only one that's in 3D, and I think that even though the first two did great with like box office, I thought that it was cool that Steve Miner integrated 3D in here and started filming the movie with 3D, with to make it in 3D. And I think that it is really cool on that factor. Just being out of all the films, this is one of them that is different in that fact, and I like that. It's a gimmick, but it's fun. I think that this is whenever 3D was not overly used. Where 3D now to me people will like, but to me, I just don't think is that interesting. I mean, yeah, it adds depth to it, but this, I think, has a fun, campy charm with it, where the 3D is just like something flies at you, instead of like having layers on the screen, which I think both of them are cool, both different versions of 3D, but this one has a fun charm to it because of that. And even watching it in 2D, it's still fun to see like an eye popping out, or like somebody pointing something at the camera and it goes this close, or like instances like that make this a really fun one with the 3D. And the movie itself, I'm going to say this about almost every Friday the 13th film. It is just the same movie again, but it is still entertaining. And I think that the first seven for me are the ones that to me are really entertaining, despite being almost the same movie every time. I really think that this one, to me, has some cool moments in it. I think that this has the scariest third act out of all the films. I think that in terms of Jason in this movie, I think he is the most intimidating in this movie. I think he has intimidation in a lot of the movies, but I think this one is probably my favorite iteration of Jason, because he, to me, is always in the shadows. Because at the end of the second one, it has a recap at the beginning. At the end of the second one, he gets the machete to his shoulder by Ginny, and she's taken away to an ambulance, and Jason escapes, and he doesn't get the hockey mask till halfway through the movie. The iconic hockey mask that we will see throughout every Friday the 13th film after this, and we will, and has been embedded in pop culture, the hockey mask that Jason wears. And I like that Jason, before he gets the hockey mask, is always hidden in shadow. He's always shrouded by something, either by clothes hanging, or being behind something, or showing just his shoulder, kind of like a Michael Myers thing, where like he's just at a distance. And I think that it works really well in its creepiness. I think that this movie is filmed really good in terms of his moments of hiding until he wears the hockey mask. And whenever he wears the hockey mask, it turns into a different thing, where he is always on screen, but he is intimidating with the hockey mask. I think that I think it's way better than the burlap sack in the second one, which I think is fine. Like, I don't think it's bad in the second one that he wears that. I just think that this is what everybody says is the quote-unquote best look for Jason, just with the hockey mask. I think that is legitimately scary and creepy. It looks, and especially because of the ending of the movie, where it is basically a 20-minute act, where after Rick gets killed and Chris is the only one left, it is basically 20 minutes of him chasing her around from a distance, or being so close to her, and how they film it, and it makes it legitimately creepy and scary. And I think it's because this is the first one I saw the end of. I don't know if I think I saw this all the way through. Like, this is my first one I saw, but I always have a love for the third act. The last 20 minutes of the movie, to me, is one of the scariest in all the Friday the 13th films. I think that it works really well, and rewatching it, it still works incredibly well. I think that, especially with how Chris, the main character in this movie, has a backstory with Jason where he might have sexually raped, abused her, and tackled her to the ground, and you can see like his flashback where he's trying to get her in there, and it's very subtle. It doesn't explain what happens, but you really get the implication of what happens. But I like that Chris has a connection to Jason, and I liked the third act with him chasing her around, and I liked just the build up to that, and I thought that the third act did a great job with, like I said, how it's filmed and how it looks, and how Jason is always so close to her and he's chasing her all the time. But to me, this is the scarier one out of all of them, because it feels like she's never safe. She's literally just, she is in the house, then Rick's body flies through the window, and then she sees Jason. Jason chases her upstairs. She hides in a couple rooms. Jason gets an axe and starts axing the door down that she is in. And then she stabs him and then tries to knife him away, but then he still chases after her, and she's upstairs. She can't get downstairs, so then she has to go out a window, fall out a window, and then get into a car, or get into the van, and then drive the van off until the gas is gone because of the siphoning earlier by the biker gang. But I like how it's such a long, like, chase scene, like 20 minutes worth, but it really is effective. And whenever she gets out of the van, because the van gets stuck on the bridge because of the gas going out, and then she runs out, and then Jason from a distance is running at her really fast. And to me, that's one of the scariest shots of the movie, whenever he is behind her at a distance where she falls out of the van and it starts to run away, but he is already running and hauling ass at her, and that to me is really scary. And whenever she goes into the barn, it has a whole nother type of chase where she has to keep hiding, and then he keeps getting her, and then she hangs him on the hay, like on a hay thing where like they pull the hay up, and he falls out. But then she realizes that Jason is the guy who implied hurting her or raping her. And I thought that for a horror movie, I thought that it was a really good way to integrate that flashback earlier in the movie of her, and then figuring out whenever he uncovers the mask, like she says, it's you, like it's you, the one who she encountered. And I liked that idea of like she literally fights back to him, but like I like how much of a chase it is. Like, it is legitimately frightening. And I like how, even though you're going to hear this a lot, there are so many Friday the 13th films that were going to be the final film. And this one, before the final chapter that came out after this, next, they wanted to kill Jason off. They said, like, I heard in an interview that, like, they literally made, like, a cake and, like, congratulated themselves that this is the end for part 3. No more Jason movies. He is dead. Chris axed him in the head, and then he's gone. And I really thought that if it ended here, then that would have been fine too, because this is a great one in terms of being suspenseful, and it has some interesting story elements for a horror movie, because you don't look at a horror movie like it's something that's going to be a well-made story or something like that. I think, to me, this is a really entertaining, fun horror movie with, to me, one of the best third acts of any of the Friday the 13th films, with, again, likable, fun characters. None of them really grated on me at all like the first two. I thought that these ones were great worthy additions too, just because they're of their personalities, even though they're tropes and cliches of these typical teenagers that get killed off. But they work really well for me in terms of having great personalities and being entertaining and giving us just enough quote-unquote little plots or little stories about them that, to me, it works whenever they get killed. And I loved Chris. I thought that she, like Alice and Ginny, was another great final girl. I thought that she really, and this time she had a past with Jason. I love that too. I thought that's really great, that she had a connection with Jason, and it's a horrible connection too. And I thought that that was great that she'd be the one to axe him off and kill him whenever they thought this was the last one. But of course, alas, it is not to be so. Of course, we had a million other sequels after this one.